Vegas. I'm Paul Wilson, and I have a special guest on the show today, Matt Hart. Matt, how the hell are you?
Hey, I'm great, sir. So good to be here. Thanks for having me. This is awesome to finally be here in person.
Matt, I think we have been talking for years now. So Matt is an announcer with the ISP, the local sled pull class, our organization. So you're out there with the club week in and week out, announcing for all of the sled pulls.
Yes, sir. I'm pretty lucky, and we were just talking about this, the fact that I'm pretty much at every single show. When I first started, it was kind of like, hey, can you do 4 or 5? And then it was like, hey, he's pretty good. What can we do to get him at more? And then next thing you know, it's 24 or 25 of them in like a 5 or 6 week span. So it's pretty cool. It's exciting because you get to see a lot of different things and a whole lot of different people. So kind of neat. Guys like yourself and everybody here, it's like they recognize me, or at least the voice, and shoot, I don't remember ever seeing them before. So it's kind of cool to walk in. It's like, there's the guy, So that's me.
So announcing for sled pulling, I think this is one of those things that I think is pretty easy to underestimate what the value of that is when you're at a pull. So if you've ever been out to any live event and there's competition going on, it's really easy to tune out the speakers, is what I've always found. And that's because usually what we get from the speakers is probably not much, right? Now, you've been doing it for how long?
Since 2019. So we're at 3 years this year. So
Okay.
Not very long, but, kind of got right after it and, been at it since. So, yeah, I kind of come right at you when I'm on there, I hope people can tone me out, like you said, a little bit, but I tend to be a bit enthusiastic, as you can probably tell, and for better or worse, you're going to hear me. So, we try to keep it exciting and fun because there's a lot of downtime, in pulling.
There is.
I'm a motorsports fan all the way through, and you go to a circle track show or something, and that's nonstop action. And not to say pulling isn't, but there's a lot of time there to be talking about, maybe what's going on at the fair or with the club or with sponsors or, even just the piece of machinery or the person driving the piece of machinery, whether it's a truck, like a lot of the ones you guys work with or on, a lot of tractors, those people in the crowd, it makes it fun when you're talking a little bit about the person underneath the helmet and the fire suit.
Yeah.
What are they doing during the week? How can we relate to this person? And, every time I went as a kid, because I've been going to them since, we were all like your kid's age, right?
Yeah.
We came with Dad. It's like, hey, here's something to do that doesn't cost much, and Dad can probably drink a beer while he's there, which, all right, awesome. And, it's always fun to hear those things. I want it to be entertaining for the people from, 4 years old to 94 years old. So, try and hit them with a little history that maybe I've learned or seen, and then, kind of keep the interest and the energy up too. So,
can you tell us a little bit about your background of kind of being around motorsports then? With, like you said, you got started at the fairs. As an adult, what's been your connection to this industry?
Yeah, sure. It was kind of by accident how I fell into the position of announcer for the Illini State Pullers, and now I've helped a few other groups out as well, all the way up to the Lucas Oil guys. I got to do one this last summer, which is a lot of fun. But really, Mike Sauter, who is the president of the ISP, Jason Worley and all them, Mike Sauter is a good friend of mine, and they were doing the banquet. They have a yearly banquet, and they do an auction where they raise money for the points championships. And he's like, I want to bring some energy to the banquet. He says, the only guy I know that can do that is you. Do you want to come and do the banquet? Sure. Well, there was a gentleman named Ryan Morey who was from right down in Belvedere, did a great job announcing. He took a job in Florida. And so they were out an announcer the same year that I came in to do the auction. And so here I am at the banquet, and it's like Mike got up in front of everybody and says, well, listen, Ryan Morey, a great announcer, he took a job in Florida, and unfortunately he's going to be missed. So if you know anybody that, maybe can announce or something, here's Matt Hart going to do the auction. And I'm like, you did that on purpose. Because once I got up there was Sheffield, Illinois, a little pull down there. They do a great little tractor and truck pull, sled pulls, as you guys like to say too, down there. And like, hey, what can we do to get this guy to announce our pull? And it was like, geez, I never really thought about, doing that. It'd always be kind of fun because I'm always talking at the show anyway. And did that first show. It was an 8-hour show, and you got to fill 8 hours. And it's like, okay, here's some good practice. And it was fun, and people were just having a great time, and the energy just reciprocated back. And so the next thing you know, Jason Worley, again, a good friend of mine now, especially, he come up and he's like, hey, just plan on being around all summer. And it was like, okay, what's that mean? Well, be here tomorrow because we need you in Morris. So okay. So I was down there, and it just kind of snowballed. I like doing it. I know a lot of people that pull. I grew up with those people. We're all kind of young guys, gals, all of us together. You're around that when you're drinking beer with these guys. It's enjoying. You go to a pull since you're a kid. You want to be around it. You get to know the people that do it, and then next thing you know, you're doing it yourself. And so it's kind of fun because, like Cole Faber said one time, we're at a wedding, and I see Cole's truck's picture in your office there. That was kind of neat. And he said, I was at a wedding for Shane Johnson, and his dad says, hey, how come you don't have a truck or something? And Cole says, he just looks dumb. He goes, he gets paid to come and do what we do. He says, this costs us a lot of money. And I said, yeah, I guess you're onto something there. So it is kind of fun to come out and do that. So yeah, that's kind of how I fell into it a little bit, the long end of the short end there.
I love that about like stumbling through like coming into an auction and then translating that into being an announcer, because you are an auctioneer full time. That's what you do.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I mean it's 80 hours a week auctioneering, and then I show up and start announcing. And what's nice about that is because with the auction business, they kind of go hand in hand, being behind a microphone. It helps me slow down just a little bit. People will never believe that because this is my slow gear, but it's fun. It's like a nice way to get out there and okay, now we're talking about certain items. But then there's certain shows, Kendall County, you've got two sleds pulling at the same time. I hit auction mode there for a little bit. It's happening fast. So, there's fun to that. I think, auctions being an agriculture-based thing, pulling being an agricultural-based thing, you see a lot of the same people, and it just makes perfect sense. So
I love that. Now, 19, that's like that was the last great year before we all had to go through the pandemic. 20 obviously off, coming back 21, 22 now. This season's wrapped up.
Yep, just got done. Labor Day weekend was the last for us at the ISP. I know a few other clubs get going through September, but not awful much because, as you know, getting back to that agriculture base, those guys are getting ready to go out in the fields. So yeah, you start in, middle of June, and you don't sleep until Labor Day, and you run around with those guys, and you do all the homework you can. You run around the pits and getting to know the people and the mechanics and, trying to figure out what they're willing to tell you because they know that I got a pretty big mouth, and that's a good thing for the audience. But, let's keep it within realms. We don't want to tell all our secrets.
Yeah.
But it's fun if you get a little bit of that, and you can let out a little bit. People remember those things, and it's fun. Yeah.
Have you seen any changes kind of in the class or in the polls in general going from 19 now back into 2022?
Yeah, definitely. So you've got a lot of things happening. Every year there's a turnover between trucks and tractors, especially. Those are a big turnover. You see a lot of guys that are running the stock farm class or, stock truck class that are making that upgrade to what is our hot street diesel class.
Sure.
And that's exciting because then they go from what's supposed to be stock, as we all know how that works, and then they're up to a hot street diesel, which is an any size turbo class, right? So that's right in the realm of what we're talking about here. Guys are throwing 3.6, turbos on a stock bottom end. And that's kind of fun, as we like to see things go flying. That's a pretty good class for that. And so then you see those guys maybe jump into what's now our light pro class. And, that's a neat class. It's a 3-inch turbo class. That's 6,500 pounds. So it's a light one. And that class was just going to get started in 2020. And then, of course, COVID happened. So we had a year where we did 6 or 8 pulls. They were all exhibition, and we kind of got to show them off. But, you had 4 trucks in it forever. Now you've got 8 or 9. And this next year, we're looking at closer to 12 to show up everyone. So that's exciting. And you've seen trucks that went from stock to that over those 3 years. It's like, oh, man, somebody put some time and effort into this thing. And so when you talk about that, it's like, I remember this driver when he would show up, to this fair, he would drive this truck here. He drove that truck to high school. That was his prom truck, right? And now he's got a weight bar on the front, and he's making 1,600 horsepower. It's like, that's pretty cool.
So nasty.
Yeah. And that's a fun class. It really is because it's kind of universal. You see trucks from the 70s up to 2022 in that class. So yeah, and again, some rule changes happen. They always do, and you guys really do a great job. Keep an eye on our stock guys. We really tried hard to get the emissions equipped trucks.
Yeah.
And I know we had 1 or 2 here and there, and for me it's kind of fun because I don't know so much for the crowd because when an emissions truck goes by, all you hear is me. It's like, man, them boys at Calibrated Power and Duramax Tuner, they got this thing. I can whisper. I'll say it's like we can whisper. This one's so quiet, but making all that power and just whizzing right by you, it's pretty neat. So to see that versus the ones that are throwing smoke, it's kind of a neat thing, and I think we're going to see more and more. And you talk about that more, knowing that that's probably going to be a thing of our future too. I think.
Yeah. I think that emissions equipment and competition aren't necessarily at opposing odds. I think you could have both. I think we're a ways away from it after this year. So for any listeners who don't remember, we threw out a $1,000 bounty. Come out to 3 pulls. We'll do a shootout. Whoever has the most distance after 3 pulls. If you have emissions equipment intact on your truck, you had to have DPF, DEF, EGR all working. To qualify, whoever had the most distance at the end of the 3 pulls, hey, we'll pay him out $1,000. We ended up pulling against ourselves. So we were the only ones in the class. That's okay. Somebody's got to be first. It's all right.
That's right. First one through the wall is the bloodiest, right? Well, and that's it, and it was kind of neat because, again, you get to talk about it a little bit. Now, again, fans like to see the smoke and everything.
Sure.
But if you could start talking about the fact of the amount of work and effort and time and engineering that went into something like that. And that's why I try to highlight a little more. It's like, listen, guys, I said, you're not going to see the smoke and things, but to be able to make this truck run that clean and make the kind of power it does and put a shellac in. I mean, that truck that you guys ran was in the top 5, I think, every pull it made. Yeah. Every pull it made, whether it was, emissions or non, it was getting after it. And to see that in that class, that's pretty cool, and so it's coming. It's coming.
I'm with you there. I think some of the R&D that guys are doing now, GDP and some other guys have aftermarket DPFs that are available now. So there's like really, really cool stuff on that horizon. We're still talking about what some of the other choke points are where we're getting tied up and losing some power. But I think we know that it's all going to get fleshed out. The one thing we know about motorsports is everybody wants more.
That's right.
And we will do whatever it takes to get to getting more. So I think that'll be really fun. But one of the other things that I honestly ignorantly forget about is tractors at sled pulls.
Right.
I know I see them in the pits, but I don't usually watch the tractor portion of the pull. I'm usually over with the truck and hanging out or up talking to you.
Right.
Are we still getting? Is the antique tractor class still a big class? Is that something that guys are still going after?
Oh, it is, and it's kind of interesting depending on where you are. When we're on this side of things, trucks are super popular. They really are, especially as you get closer to the city. It's just something that people in the crowd relate to. Where the antique tractors and things, you see a lot of that up in Wisconsin. North of the border is huge. Tractor pulling is monstrous up there. And we got some good stuff in Southern Illinois, too, and some great classes within us. If we're talking tractors and we're talking turbos, I love our 6,000-pound light super tractor class. That's something that gets all the diesel truck guys even excited because you got triple turbos, you've got between 2,000 and 4,000 horsepower on alcohol or diesel, Woo! And the thing weighs 6,000 pounds. Your steering wheel is your brakes, and that takes some nerve. I mean, I always make the joke. I said a guy didn't pray much until he got in the seat of that tractor because he's looking up at the sky and said, Lord, let it go straight, because you're doing 35 miles an hour with 50,000 pounds behind you. That's a rush. And so that's interesting. There's some antique clubs I've actually announced for a little bit. Still a good following for that. As an auctioneer, you still see people collect those, but that has changed. It used to be, say, your John Deere 2-cylinders, your G's, your A's, your B's, used to pull. Now it's a John Deere 4010, a 4020. It's a 1206 International. It might be in our Too Hot to Farm classes. Those are the ones that the guys grew up or their dads or their grandpas used to farm with, so it's a generational thing. Tractors have gotten so large now. We were just talking about tuning them and the technology in them, but the older ones, are now the 60s, 70s, and 80s models tractors are antique, which is kind of scary because, we're right there, right? So
yeah, I don't like calling things that were made in the 80s antique. I'm going to pass on that.
You're like, darn it, now I wonder why my shoulder hurts, right? So we'll be careful, but I need a grease zerk there. But no, so it is. It's very popular, and I was lucky enough, again, I mentioned that Lucas Oil show. I had a chance to see some really big power, super stock trucks, which is huge. I mean, monster. You're talking twin turbo, throw in smoke, big time power. It's as good as it gets. And then on the tractor side, you had your pro stock tractors. And, if you ever get on, the internet and you listen to the whomp of an idle of a pro stock tractor, you just get excited. It's hard to keep me in this little bit of a room talking about it, right? So, just the amount of raw power that comes out of that and, your 2 to 4 to 5,000 horsepower out of a diesel, that came with a 300 horsepower engine, that's just cool. That's just cool. So, yeah, it's still very popular. And boy, I tell you, they like to burn diesel fuel just the same.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no lie there. I always love. I will say whenever I see the really crazy out there tractors at the national shows, do you deal with any of those? Have you announced for any of those where they're two engine and 4 engine stuff? Like
yeah.
That?
So back to that Lucas Oil show, it was great because then you've got your mods, and there's a four engines making 3,000 horsepower apiece. It's 12,000 horsepower alcohol burning. It's like, boy, it's just like the crowd here. They like to burn alcohol and go fast, and man, it just shakes your bones. I compare that to drag racing, like a Top Fuel. I love that stuff. I love drag racing. It's a big thing. And to see that kind of power and the clutches and everything that works to try and make that work. It's one thing to see a pulling truck, a stock truck go out and, he lost his number 7 cylinder. Bad day. And then you see one of them pro mods and it's like, he lost his 3rd engine. Like, his engine, yeah, it's gone. It's gone. At 3,000 horsepower, who knows how much? It's gone. They're just going to throw another one on. It's like, oof, okay, we're in a different world here, So that's pretty neat to see. And again, they're doing 40 miles an hour, and the front wheel on that's not any bigger than, something on a bicycle, your kids are riding. So it's like, whew, the engineering in that is very cool. Very cool. And it's neat. Like I said, you get to see some of that. And then there's turbine engine ones. That's a whole nother animal. Now we're talking about turbos that run the whole thing. And then again, diesel ones. I talk about that light super tractor class. That's a national level class you could see at the ISP, which is nice because those tractors, a lot of them, the rules are going to follow the same that you're going to see at Louisville, Kentucky, which is the big, the big thing, or Bowling Green, Ohio. Maybe not be able to compete at that level completely, but their rules are the same and they're designed the same. And you got diesel versus alcohol. That's kind of fun, so you're going to have some black smoke, and then you're going to have ones that whistle and just, sound like a jet engine taking off. And, sound is a big part of it. It really is. That's what people are there for. And, as an announcer, you kind of accentuate that, right? So you're out there, you're jabbering along, and then shut up, let them listen. Because that's what they're here for, hear that engineering and everything that's going on. So, it's a sensory experience. So, yeah.
Well, and I think that sensory experience comes full circle when we run into like the gas and diesel classes. What a crazy thought, just to be honest with you. But it's a weight limit only on that class?
Yeah, so you've got your altered stock truck class for years, and this is the one where you saw a lot of those light pro trucks were running against the gas trucks. And so they're both, at that time, I think they were weighing 6,300 pounds. That's what they're at now. Could run weight bars. Diesel had an RPM limit, but it was high enough to where it didn't matter much. But the gassers, they'd stay right with them. It's interesting to see because, again, you got 4,000 RPM versus 9,000 RPM.
Yeah.
And your torque curves are so much different, right? So where a guy's landing and going, and, it takes a whole lot to get after it. And, that's interesting for people because there's guys like me that, believe it or not, have never owned a diesel truck, owned a couple semis. I know what that's all about. But, it'd be like, hey, Gasser still got it, a little bit. And then, I walk in here and I see some of the projects you guys are working on. I go, I don't know. I think diesel's got a pretty good feel of this, So it is. So their weight's the same. Sled hitch is going to be the same height. And they were always quite competitive. It would run a 3-inch turbo. I'm trying to remember. Or it was 2.6. I'm sorry. I believe it was a 2.6. So my first year was the last year we saw a lot of diesels in that class before the jump. And so they run a smaller turbo, but again, still just getting after it. And that was a lot of fun. Like you said, it's a crowd pleaser because you got the two different sides of it.
Yeah. It's also the loudest class by far.
Yeah.
I don't care what else is out there. Some of those gas trucks sing at 9,000 RPMs. Like, being a diesel guy as well, I'm like, oh, yeah. No, I'm here for the diesels, but shut up while I watch this gas truck run.
Oh, absolutely. And it's kind of fun because we were looking at some of your guys' projects around here and talking about agriculture things. And, I get to run with the mini rod guys quite a bit. And that's a whole nother animal. You got an 8-foot wheelbase and you've got anything goes pretty much. They got cubic inch limit, but, that gets a little hairy. And they've got little 4BT Cummins pulling on a mini rod that's an 8-foot wheelbase. Yeah. I'm like, I know there's listeners out there that are like, hey, you know what? That's pretty cool.
I could put that together in my garage.
I could. It'd fit. Just move the car out of the way. Say, honey, it's not that important. I've got an idea, And so we see a lot of that going on, which is kind of neat. So that's kind of making the corner too. So you might see more of that happening. And that's another national level type thing, and big in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just milking cows, eating cheese, and doing polling up there, but that's a big part of what they do. So, and no offense to my Wisconsin friends, I spend a lot of time up there. So
no, I got some offense for you.
Yeah,
Packers suck.
Yeah, amen. Yeah,
I love it too. Well, because it is one of these things too that being around sled pulling, I think compared to like being around drag racing, which like when I go to the track, there's definitely a group of guys at the track that are going to be very welcoming, very helpful, very, very nice. When you go to the sled pulls, it's kind of like everybody. No, you shouldn't be asking a ton of questions about somebody else's specific build, but if you go there and you're having problems, do not be surprised when people come by and try to help you.
Yeah, if you need help or something, there's people that are in the same class. I always call it a big family, and families don't always get along, right? That's part of it. But at the end of the day, these guys are going to work hard to make sure your ride is good so they can beat up on it, right? So, I always laughed. You look at the NHRA, and John Force would give parts to guys, I'm told, just so they could keep running and do that. And it's like, guys, we want to see this succeed. We want the sport to succeed. And in our case, in pulling, especially a small level, these guys have all been there.
Yeah.
Everybody started with a stock one. If you ever come to one of our shows, Neil Rogers, the Suburban, if you see it, it's kind of a staple. That truck started pulling their old Oliver tractor on the trailer. That's how it got there. And then they just pull it in the stock gas class. And then, fast forward, now it's a 1,200 horsepower, super stock truck.
Yeah.
And a lot of these diesel guys, same thing. And there's businesses that have been started from this, Again, you can name some. One of your sponsors, again, Jason Worley's name gets mentioned. Again, he's been pulling since, the stock truck days,
yeah.
And now look at him, right? And it's turned into what it's turned into. And that's a big part of his business. And there's another guy that's going to go out of his way and his team to help you because, well, for one, they're probably going to be able to get you some stuff, which is great. But, everybody's helpful, people want to win, but at the end of the day, it's just fun. It's fun, and they want to see other people succeed.
It is, yeah. It's funny you bring that up. I was just talking with Jason, mentioning that he had saw a guy come in at the beginning of the season, stepped up to the next class, having a lot of issues, bouncing all over the place, all of the entry level. You knew how to make horsepower, but now you have to learn how to sled pull with that horsepower. It's like that's
Yes.
not always an easy transition. And he was talking about how him and his brother had kind of sat down at each pull and said, hey, why don't you try this? Hey, why don't you try that? Hey, have you considered this? Hey, have you considered that? Until the guy actually got his truck, and they said the exact same thing you said, which was like, well, we don't want to lose to him because he's hopping.
Right.
It's like,
Right. I want to beat him at his best.
Yeah. I want to see him have fun. I want to see him come back next year.
Right. Right.
And that's one of those big ones with sled pulling that I think, again, opposed to drag racing. I know a lot of guys who went and bought a truck or bought a car, got out at the track, ran it one time, was like, man, today was a lot of fun for this test and tune. They're never going to go back. Or they go the once a year for the diesel drags. I go once a year for the diesel drags. I'm not at the track every weekend. I get it. Like,
right.
It's just fun to do this one time. But with sled pulling, it does seem to be something that just really pulls people in.
Oh, definitely. And again, you're part of that agricultural base, and I think that makes a big difference. You got a bunch of people out there that are, tweaking on things and working on things, and there's guys that have been pulling for years that are just, and not so much just wanting to tell somebody how to do it, but they're willing to help out. Like, hey, try this with your rear end. Did you take your shocks down to this point? And there's guys that are in separate classes. Ron Brummel's a guy that pulled super stock trucks in the NTPA for years. And now, he's pulling again. His son is pulling the Orange Crush truck. And Ron will get talking to these guys that are in the diesel class, the Light Pro, because that frame is the same that Ron ran in the 70s and 80s. And he's like, you might want to try this. I know the weight's a little different with that diesel engine up there, but, and sure enough, they'll try it out, smooths out, and says, well, geez, Ron, thanks, And he wants to see a good show. It's fun. It's in your blood. You can't help it. Whether you're doing it yourself or, you're watching somebody go out there and give it their best, you want it to be their best, like you said. And, and it's fun to lose to a guy. I know it sounds crazy, but it's fun to lose to a guy. I say this in all the competitions I'm in, when he had a great day.
Sure.
You're like, man, that was awesome. And it makes you better.
Yeah.
Right? I compete in the auction contest. That's a whole nother thing, but it's still competition. And we always say, you never lose if you learn. And every time I've gone out, you watch something happen and go, wow, I never thought of trying it that way. I'm going to get better. And so like you said, you get pulled in, these guys get in there, and it's like, I came in 8th place out of 32 trucks. Pretty good day. I want to be first place. Well, now he's asking the guy that came in second and third or first, like, hey, what are you trying to do? And that conversation is healthy. They can have that. And hey, this is who I'm talking to. This is what I would try and do. And there's a class, the altered stock truck class guy said, boy, we helped a guy out. Now he's beating us every time. They're happy for him, but they're like, no, I got to step up my own game.
Yeah, that's it.
That's part of it. We all get better, right? So it's pretty cool. Yeah.
I love that. I love that because it is, and I don't think this takes away from the level of competition either, because there does seem to be an absolutely illogical, insane amount of drive to go 30 miles an hour for 300 feet. You're not getting much out of it. Let's just be real. Like if you win all that you could win, you took first place at every pull all season in the class that pays the most amount of money, and then you won the points championship. I would be surprised if you covered the cost of your turbocharger.
Yeah, maybe. A little bit of your fuel.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this was fun, and that's just getting there. That's not even the fuel you put in the machine to run it. And I laugh about that. Guys will drive 6-8 hours to go pull to win $200. And it's like, what that thing cost, I don't want to talk about it. It's just a passion, and it's funny because I've been around all kinds of sports, motorsports and everything, and Chuck Hobbs, another announcer, he's another mini rod guy. Those guys will run all over the place. He says it's the one sport on earth, where guys will go 8 hours to go 5 seconds and be totally thrilled about it. And it's like it is. It's you put everything together, and it's so much going into hoping everything goes the same direction at the right time, and you're just a part of that flow. And if you win, you win. If you don't, then you try again. And guys will just keep at it. It's a glory thing. Your name's on the thing. You hear that announcer who's awfully excited about saying it. Say you went the farthest. Say your distance. And I'll tell you, them guys, they're upset if you don't say it. Like, how did that call come in? I won. I wanted to hear what you said, but I was in the truck, so they got people taking videos just to hear what I say because they want to hear that excitement. I'm like, oh boy, all right, I better be careful what I say, I guess. But no, it's fun. And the guys will come up, and what's nice too, and you talk about the family as the announcer. I get to be a part of the tractor side. I get to be a part of the garden tractor side, the big tractor, the trucks, the big trucks, and I get to know these guys. And I really encourage, when I can, I get busy, we all do, but to come up and say, hey, I'll celebrate with you. What's going on with the truck? Man, how's it going? How's the kids?
Yeah.
You get to know these people, and then you see how they do, and you're cheering for them. You don't have any favorites, you can't, right? Everybody. It's one big thing, but it's nice to see, and you see some guys that falling on a hard time because something broke or maybe whatever is happening, and they go out there and they just kick the hell out of one, and it's like awesome. And when you're excited and you feel that, the crowd feels that, and then it's a fun show for everybody. So because at the end of the day, winning is just about everything, but it's really about going out, having fun, but putting on a show for those people in the stands. And for me, when people are into that, it makes the whole show that much better.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you can absolutely feel the tension when it's been a long show and a lot of people have broken, when you're at a tough track and you've seen disaster after disaster, and you can feel the difference when you're at a show where people are just kicking ass and they're pushing the limits. And it's like, I love anytime I hear it's a floating finish. I'm like, oh good, someone's going in the bean field.
Right.
Like that, we can promise that. I don't know who it is. We're all gonna love it when it happens, but
that's right.
Someone's going in the bean field.
Yeah, there's two things that make everybody excited: breakage, right,
Yep.
and somebody just whomping on it. We were in Ogle County down in Oregon, and I'm actually from that area originally, and so I know the area pretty good, which is cool. So I know some people in the crowd, and you can feed off of that a little bit. The energy was good, and that tractor class I mentioned, the light supers, were going 440 feet, and our flag man is down there, and there's Donnie Pierce and Mr. Jordal, he's down there, and he thinks he's good at 380, and the tractor goes flying past him, and as the announcer, I got to give him a hard time. I say, he's backpedaling, he's trying. Oh, he just got blown past. He's halfway back to Rochelle. He's going to the creek, and people are just going crazy. And when you see that finish mark, that floating finish, and you see a truck or a tractor or anything go past it, and that crowd start lighting up, and you get, oh man, there's just energy there. And it's, I don't care who's doing it, we're all excited.
Yeah.
We're all excited. So if it's a red tractor, it's a Ford, it's a Dodge, it's a Chevy, you have fun with that, but everybody's excited when one does it. So yeah, it's fun. For something as simple as it is, it really gets people excited, especially at the county fair level.
Right.
Because you're out there and people are they're doing agriculture all the way, and then you got motorsports involved, and anybody can relate to, hey, I've got a Duramax, I could do that.
Yeah.
We sure could. Go get yourself a hitch and find us. We'd be happy to have you. Just be careful when it breaks. Those things happen. But, it is. It's fun. It's fun. Like I said, we've all been going to it forever. And just to be on this side of it is a blessing,
That's so cool.
Yeah.
If you had to give some advice for somebody who was brand new, they showed up for their very first sled pull, they catch you in the parking lot, they say, Matt, what do I need to know?
Sure. Well, biggest thing is come watch. I can point you in the right direction of someone to talk to, like, hey, I'm really wanting to do this. Like, what's the rules? Like, okay, we've got some great board members that are always around that all of them pull. And so you could talk to them about rules and stuff. But just, and I've heard others, I'll echo what they say is, just get in and start asking questions. Make yourself known. Nobody's worried. You see a guy walking around like, well, who's this? He's hanging out. He's drinking a beer with us after the thing. Well, he's got this truck and he's going to try and do it. Great. Start asking that question. What's it going to take? If you're a tractor guy, same rule. Same rule. What some of the old boys just love to impart wisdom. And truck pullers, same thing. And you're going to run into some people that you can't seem to get rid of after a while. It's kind of that two-sided thing, right? At first, you're trying to get to know everybody, and then eventually, you're like, darn it, now I can't get rid of them, right? It's every single day we're doing this stuff. These guys I'll get on Snapchat or Instagram or something, and all these pullers will have videos of guys they didn't know 5 years ago, but they showed up to a pull, and now they're pulling every weekend, and now they're part of the pit crew of some of the bigger classes, and they're pulling their stock truck.
Yeah.
And, they're involved until 3 a.m, getting something ready to go, and then I see them the next day, like, how you guys doing? We're a little tired, but she's ready to go. And so if you're just walking in, just make yourself known, say hello. And if you see a truck, I always encourage people, get in the pits, get out there and say hi to people, take pictures. If you got your kids with you, like you bring your son with, it's so much fun. Yeah. You got a 5 to a 10 or a 15-year-old kid anywhere in there, bring them in and start asking those questions, get a right hitch, find out, what rules it takes, what time to show up. That's the biggest thing, especially stock guys, they get razzed a lot because it's hard. Because you've never done it before.
Sure.
Right? And they show up and everybody on the club has been through it before. They understand. It's like, guys, these are the rules. This is how it's supposed to be. Well, it's a guy's first time,
I know plenty of guys who it's their 10th time and showed up with the wrong hitch or no hitch or forgot the bump stops.
Or what time and where are we supposed to line up? I don't know which way north is, and it's like, and then as the announcer, I got to be the guy that kind of try and straighten them out. Luckily, I'm a pretty happy disposition, but I always feel bad. Like, guys, you're parked in the wrong spot. You got to move. There's a lot of, but people will help you, just show up, ask the questions, keep an open ear. And like you said, the hitch thing, that's a big thing. It's a big thing. And hitches are breaking. People are flying off. People love it in the crowd. But
oh, sure.
It's like, darn it, man. You paid $30 to do it. You drove all the way out here and you went 25 feet and broke loose. It's like, try and look at that a little bit, but you'll learn,
I'll tell you, when that happens, I know your next pull, what's not going to happen.
That's right.
It's like, you're not going to fuck this one up twice.
Yep.
I've been with alleged professionals who 3-4 pulls in a row had to go borrow a hitch from somebody else who was in line in the same class? Yes, of course. That's also a part of it, because you are going, like, I always thought the scariest part of sled pulling is that first time backing up.
Right.
It's before they hook to it. It's before you settle in. It's before you launch. It's before your first break. It's that first time backing up where you just have no fucking clue what you're about to do.
That's right.
You don't know what this experience is yet. You're pretty sure you want it, but you have no clue what this is yet. And then all of a sudden they hook, and then you hear Matt talking, and then you see the flag go green, and then because it's sled pulling, you don't give a shit about time, so you just sit there for like 3 to 4 minutes, getting yourself psyched up, and then all of a sudden you hammer on it, and you're hooked. Like that's it. You're in. You are now
pun
a
intended.
Puller.
Yep, yeah. That's right. It's the same thing. I've had the honor. I've actually never been able to pull a truck, but a good friend of mine, he actually came in and let me drive his tractor. He's got a 600 horsepower tractor. It's a pretty good little deal. Underpowered, which was probably a good idea since it was first time. And like you said, backing up. You got your helmet on, and you're like, geez, what am I doing? I don't know this machine, or maybe this guy built it. You got guys that are building trucks or tractors. Like, man, I spent all winter building this.
Yeah.
I haven't done anything with it yet. This is the first time, and you just think about my whole winter, and it's going to come down to this. Like, oh my gosh, all that buildup, and this is it. But then, man, as soon as you're going, and people in the crowd, they'll say antique tractors or even stock trucks. Some of them only go 12 or 15 miles an hour. It feels like you're flying.
Oh, yeah.
That sled's surging, and you hear it squeaking and creaking and groaning, and you're hoping it's the sled and not your truck because you got to get to work tomorrow morning. And then you hear that annoying announcer going, oh, man, I hope he can get to work in the morning. And you're just like, God, I hope so, too. And you're hanging on, and it's so funny. I always make the joke. I said, some of these stock guys probably have a footprint in their firewall because they were pushing so hard. Like, come on, girl, I need you. And so it is. It is, and wow, what a thrill. And then all of a sudden it's over. And you're like, okay, what happened? And then you look over at the signboard and you either went 110 feet and, oh, goodness gracious, hopefully the crowd's clapping because you're a good sport. Or you went 330 feet and you're like, whoa.
Did I just win this?
Right. Right. How far was it? How far was I going? How fast? You forget to look, it's like, oh my gosh, it's over, like, geez, all that buildup. And so anyway, yeah. So once you do that, again, you get it in your blood, and then you can't help it. And then you're talking to guys like you that are like, hey, we can fix you up with some stuff. You got a checkbook. We can make things work, and you really make it go. And we love those kind of things. Because, again, like I said, you see a truck start in even just the stock class, and then it goes to that hot street class, and then maybe it evolves into the light pro or even a pro stock. There was, stock diesel trucks that are now pro stock trucks.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Yeah.
And then now back to a light pro. It's just to watch that. I can still remember that engine came from this truck, which was in 2004. He was a senior in high school. He had no business doing this, and now, 10 years later, here he is in this class. So it's neat to see all that evolve. And like we said, it's one big family. So a lot of people, again, if a puller gets married, almost every other puller's at the wedding, which, for better or worse, the poor wives, or husbands, because there's females that pull too, and it's great to see them. They do a great job, and we really like to razz them up a little bit too, because the crowd likes that. That's fun. That's fun. There's no discrimination, not at all. And, that's what's neat about the sport, and like you said, if something breaks, a guy's willing to help you out, maybe throw it on a trailer and haul it to wherever he can to help you and, go from there. So, yeah, pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
Matt, this has been so much fun. I can't believe sled pulling season's done for the year. I know I'm excited to get back into it next year. We're going to be out there with ISP running our emissions equipped truck. See if we can get some other guys maybe to do it too. Guys, hey, if you're listening, if you're in southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois, you want to come see if your emissions equipped truck can beat ours, we'll bet you.
Yep.
We'll bet you a corn dog.
Hey, corn dogs.
We'll start there.
That sounds good. I tell you, them corn dogs, that's a bet. That's a bet. And like I said, get out there, guys. If you're out there, and ladies too, if you're thinking about doing it, come on out. And, everybody can talk, a lot of smack in the bleachers, but hey, put it to the pavement, put it to that dirt, and get out there and have some fun with us. We really appreciate your guys' sponsorships all year long. Of course, it keeps me going, and it certainly gives me something to talk about, which, as you can tell, it doesn't take much. But it's been fun. So get out there. Like I said, I love to see more of the emissions equipped because it's fun to talk about a little bit different. And then if you're not, hey, throw some smoke and let's have some fun with it too.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, this has been Paul Wilson and Matt Hart. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for joining us today, guys. This has been Paul Wilson
and Chris Emke.
Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you again soon.
The older ones, are now the 60s, 70s, and 80s models tractors are antique, which is kind of scary because, we're right there, right? So
yeah, I don't like calling things that were made in the 80s antique.
I'm going
to pass on that.